What's your story? I am Pops, and this week it's just me. Kind of a therapeutic time to talk about kind of a rough 5 weeks or so. It seems in some ways, sometimes when you're going through things, it can feel way longer. And then also it feels like yesterday. So it's kind of been that way. But I want to ask the questions like, can men talk about their emotions? Like we're in a place where a lot of folks have been talking about this. I've listened to some different commentators who are in these sort of like spheres and things like that. And I know, especially for younger men who don't have even male role models, this is definitely an issue for them. But even as someone who I feel pretty confident about myself, I do have some friends that I did talk to and I would talk to, but I also feel like I never was able to sort of like emotion dump. You need a good cry sort of feeling. You never can get to that point because you're kind of stuck, right? Because you're told or asked to open up about different feelings, and then you're also the one everyone's looking to lean on. So you can feel trapped. Like it's okay to not know exactly how to deal with circumstances. So let's get some context. So some of the first phases of things that I was going through and we have been going through was, how much time am I spending on YouTube? Is it worth our time? Cost benefit. We have another business stuff we're working on. And then that's in the middle of dramatically changing the time and energy and frustration that involves. Then we actually had like actual tragedy. By the time you're watching this, we've already had our funeral. And it's that you never know today's the last day, right? Um, there was a Christian song that I really enjoyed early on, and it was about there's a line about being one phone call from your knees, and forget about my faith for a minute. I could relate to that, and it really struck me and it stuck with me. And that's kind of what happened. We'd gotten a phone call. Our friend had been. It's not friend. He's more than friend. It's extended family, and he had been killed at his place of business. He owns this business, and a person came in, and so the problem was this drug out for about 5 or 6 hours with information. We didn't have all the facts. We couldn't get a hold of people, and we're going through people and things like that. So made it worse. She didn't know everything going on, or you want to be there for them, the other people in that part of the family and stuff, and you don't know what you can do, if you can do anything. You don't know where anyone is. Are they at the hospital, or and then it was compounded by, I'll just say, the investigation, how all that was handled. In my opinion, I think it exasperated the situation more than it needed to be, but that's here or there. That's my own emotions. And then you have positive things that happen. Like we had our grandbaby come in. So we have grandbaby number 5 arrived. I'm not trying to equate any of these things other than just emotional roller coaster of stuff, and try to convey to you that I know you're going through something. And if you're not going through something, you will be going through something, or you just were going through something, because that's kind of how life is. I always made roller coaster analogies long before I tried to regularly talk in front of other people. But it was always like, yeah, it's pretty clear that there's ups and downs, and don't ever enjoy your high too much because there is a low coming. Don't get too discouraged because it will, the world keeps turning. You come out of it. But in those moments, you just felt, I think for me, um, the first phase, we're talking about the business and the relationship stuff. I felt like I let my wife down. I felt like I wasn't being fair to her. I said, well, I could scrap the whole thing. What can I do differently? Um, all sorts of things run through your head. You literally ping extremes, even if you don't want to. I think maybe you do. Maybe you don't. I don't know. I did. I pinged extremes. And reality is she's amazing. She's a rock, you know? And at the end of the day, I think she wants to be, more of a business partner, like more involved with things. Maybe not even I don't even know that she wants to like directly be in part of the nerd sphere, but she wants to converse more about what's going on. Like she wants to be more intricately involved in like operational stuff with what will the company look like and what will we be doing, how will we do it. Maybe you could start doing shows, you could start selling your stuff like that, finding a way to do that. Very encouraging. And when I talked to my business partner, because he was going to move away from that part of the business, and he was like, I was dreading having this conversation with her. He maybe he didn't use the word dread, but it was like there was hesitation. And I thought to myself of something that Alex Hormozy had said about most of your fear or most of your anxiety comes from a difficult conversation. Like you don't want to have a difficult conversation, or you're afraid of confrontation, or you're afraid of what can happen if you tell someone this, or afraid of someone to tell someone that. And I thought to myself, it may be those are kind of extremes, right? Where you talk about, fear or anxiety, but just whatever it is, anxiety is probably closer to the real life of the stress. It's like, well, it was going to be a stressful conversation because it's like, okay, well, now what? And that was what all of that led up was. And then when you go into the shock factor of the tragedy, you just feel, you wake up and that's it. It's just, I was already in a place where I'd been thinking a lot about that because of Cardinal Sin had passed away. Many of you know Cardinal Sin, the YouTuber, and he had been scheduled to be on this to do a Sunday Watch Your Story with me. And it turned out that was the week of the hurricane. So it was the Thursday. I was set to record with him. Obviously, I reached out to Pat S., who does the scheduling for that at the time, and he took care of it. Cardinal Sin was like, best wishes, stay safe, all the things you say. And then there was no chance to have him back. There was no chance to touch base, really. He's just gone. And I wasn't super close, but it was just like, man, it hits you hard. So when you have someone like close to you and they're just deleted, I don't even know. I don't even know how to reconcile that. You know what I mean? I don't even know how to. Um, I'll say at least the grandkids were just on face value taking it. I think one is really, really too young to get it. Like it's just not going to ring. Um, and we'll see how that plays out because we're going to be headed into the holidays. There's going to be different things that come up that your life's changed. Everything is different now. So we're nowhere close to having some sort of like how we're moving forward type thing. But as a guy, as a man, as a husband, as patriarch, all these different terms we use, you're trying to hold it together. You're trying to be a good leader. You're trying to lean on other people to lean on you. And sometimes you don't have words of wisdom. Sometimes you don't have a story to make somebody, you don't have a story to make somebody feel better. Um, I was having a tough conversation with someone I care about, dramatic, just devastated by everything. And I get it because it's easy to be hopeless. It's easier. It really is. It's really easier to just sort of like, lay in bed or mope. It is succumb to everything because everything else is hard, or at least harder. And that's kind of where I was in a sequence of events of every day was hard. Every day had something else. And like I said, these things are all stacked on each other. We're going through a tragedy. My daughter-in-law is pregnant, worried about her health. Baby does come, obviously, everything's great, but you're just in a constant state of emotional turmoil. And I wanted to at least take a pause in some ways to be transparent with everybody. And two, whoever I'm talking to, I got you, man. I understand. I got you. I know what you're feeling. I know what you're going through. And this isn't my first or last rodeo with these types of problems. I remember What's Your Story was really formed. There's a whole channel called What's Your Story. But I wanted to put everything into pops, so I don't put content on there over anymore. But my wife and I had basically kind of doing hospital ministry for our church because we ended up with like three different scenarios with people who were in the hospital. All three resulted in the person passing. So you're in the middle of doing all of that, grief counseling and all that. And I'll never forget Manny. He spent a lot of time in the hospital. He'd talk to me about all things. He'd talk about stories. He'd share these different things, what happened or whatever. And I remember going to his funeral. It lasted for 20 or 30 minutes. I was really having a hard time even holding it together, let alone try to speak. So I didn't say anything. But his whole life, it was like, that's it. The funeral's over, 20, 30 minutes. And it's like, you know how many stories he had to tell that lasted more than 20 minutes? um, and I've not lived up to the goal. The goal was to try to capture more of those stories, right? Bring somebody in who can just talk about different things that happened in their life, talk about their dad, talk about, this crazy adventure story or military story or whatever. So that is on the plate. That is the goal, to capture more of that. And this year I've spent most of my time uh, capturing and learning from other YouTubers. Like, how do we do this? How do we change the landscape for communication and entertainment? Because that is what YouTube is doing. It is changing it. The monopoly that they've had with television and film and talk radio and talk shows and all of that has radically now changed and evolved into something different. And in some cases, people can have dramatic success at it. And in some ways, people can have their life changed by being able to talk about the things that they're interested in talking about. But at the end of the day, I always keep thinking about Manny and how that changed my life to look at things differently. And I want to honor that some way. I don't want to be able to get more of this. I'd love to do this live. I'd love to have face to face, but I'm just not able to do that. And, but we're not alone. I know many of you that are watching this, if you're not already saying comments in chat or in comments, or you'll email me or DM me or whatever, and all of that is welcome, please. Um, I know I'm not alone, and I know you're not alone. Uh, and part of that is we have to kind of walk side by side to figure out how to navigate through this thing called life, right? Uh, a lot of times, I know with my wife, when her feelings are hurt or she's feeling um, less attended to or something, I'm generally not aware that I've fallen short. I can honestly say I'm not consciously making those mistakes. I'm not angry. I'll show her. I don't have that in my spirit. So for me, that stuff, once she talks to me through some of that, it's usually pretty easy for me to try to figure out how I can be better at it, how I can be more attentive, or whatever it is I need to make some changes or some adjustments to. Um, but some of this other stuff, hmm, it's a lot harder, right? Thanksgiving, Christmas this year is going to be a little challenging. There's going to be moments where the smallest of things set you off. I remember our first Christmas without my father-in-law when Mrs. Pop's dad died. And He used to always be very sneaky. He would take a plastic fork and he would have it in his shirt pocket. So as they were making food, he'd be watching football and whatever. He'd navigate through there with his plastic fork and he'd be stealing little samples and little bites and stuff like that. And it always just made me laugh. Uh, yeah, I miss that. And I wouldn't be remiss if I included things like, your day job can be rough. Uh, People pull out in front of you in traffic more, it seems, whenever you're going through some stuff. Rude people in line ahead of you or rude cashiers in front of you. It seems like, you know, you can get on a good run, but when you're on a bad run, it just seems like it just keeps perpetuating itself in so many different ways. And you're just like, oh, I can't take it out. There's so many spam calls right now where I'm just like, please stop calling me. Oh Lord, dear Lord. I'm with such. Oh, please take me off your list. I'm like, I don't want to even remotely snap at you because it's not your fault. But I get to that point where I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna be rude to this poor person who's just trying to make their $10 an hour or whatever doing phone calls on a robocall machine. So I think the problem that we have is, and I am not the manliest of man in this some sort of like weird sphere of testosterone because I look around and I think of all these people that are coworkers or friends or whatever, and they're so much more closed off than I am. I pretty much talk to my wife about anything, and I do have a couple friends that I can talk about, and I had one that I did talk to eventually. It took a few days, you know, things like that. You've got to figure out a way to have somebody, um, even if you need someone to just vent to. Because I've had that happen where someone will message me, "Can I talk to you?" And then they say, "I just need someone. I just need to talk to someone about this. I don't even need your opinion." They need to get it out of their system. I totally get that, and sometimes it's easier if you know that's the conversation you're having. The worst is when they think you think you're supposed to say something and they don't want you to say anything. But how much worse would this be if you were trying to close yourself off or if you didn't have anyone to talk to? So I say that, bring that up to make sure everyone, you got a friend or two, let them know that you're there for them. Be more accessible, be more open to, uh, I'm not out to judge you. I got your back. If there's a 2 a.m. phone call that you need, I'm there, that kind of thing. Because sometimes we need permission, I guess. Maybe that's what I'm trying to get at. We need permission to know who that inner circle of friends are or could be. Have to announce it to one another or at least declare it. And then work on those relationships. You know what I mean? You don't need to have, um, because I think we use the word friend sometimes very loosely. 'Cause we have a lot of associates. We have people that we interact with. We have a certain level with them, but you're not going to like call them out of the blue and talk about the problems with your wife. You know what I mean? That's a different level of friendship. So you have some of that. Work through that a little bit. And I got to be honest, do a real assessment of that. Do a head count, if you will. Do I have someone I can call? And if not, I probably should get someone that I can call because it is for your own well doing, your own self care, so to speak. You have to be able to be your 100% so you can be 100% for someone else because when this is stuff's happening, we're not at 100%. So you got to do your best to try to make sure that you're standing as firm as you can because the other people might need you. So it's not unmanly. It doesn't demean us or lower us to rely on those friends and folks around you, um, because you have to be able to keep something under control to hold you up so I could be there for the family members or the coworkers or what all these different scenarios that I'm kind of driving around this morning. Um, I can tell you this. a lot of prayer. And I don't want to get on a big theological rant, but I don't know what you believe in. Um, I'm kind of here's the thing. If you believe there could be a God, he already knows. Maybe you should just talk to him about it. So there was a lot of that for me. A lot of me just talking, and maybe it's all just fantasy and that's what you believe. But I can say this, if it makes you feel better and it gives you the release you need, what harm is there? That's how I felt. So this morning's a little different. Schedule is still out of control. I wish I could tell you. I mean, I already have a very limited box of time that I can do this with you guys. And then that has been, as you've heard, extremely disrupted. I missed a couple talk hards. I missed every episode of every. It is what it is. I can't undo that. I can't change this. I'm not going to fake this with you guys. I'm not going to just pretend. It just is what it is. I did try to record on the road, and the audio to me is so bad. Oh, anyway, no, you guys have been cool about it. But yeah, a couple videos. I'm just like, ugh, okay. Um, but I love doing this. I love having this relationship with people that are just out there. I love hearing from random new people. I will tell you that things will continue to evolve and change because that's what life is. It's going to be a constant ebb and flow. What your story is in 2023 won't be what it is in 24, and hopefully it won't be what it is in 25 or 26. I want it to be something that reflects that time and place. And if it doesn't, maybe I'm doing something wrong. I really don't need it to be exactly the same. I think that's actually not what I want. I want it to be a good conversation that can evolve with the time and where I am and the journey that we're all on together. So, needed to have this conversation. I'm glad I have a platform like this. I have so many supporters who have been so kind. Memberships are still so solid. I can't thank all of you enough. Um, and I don't want to let you down. So I'm trying to press through a storm, if you will. And on the other side of that, though, it's gonna be nice. It's gonna be nice. Thanks for everything. Thanks for watching and listening and being a supporter. Appreciate you guys so much. Love your comments. Feel free to load them up. I will get to them. I try to answer to every comment when I can. And again, just thanks for watching. Thanks for being here. I appreciate you. Take care, everybody. I am Pops.